Well, we hope that you had a very Merry Christmas and had time to spend with family and friends. I'm John Jenkinson. Welcome to the Market Day Report on this Tuesday. Yesterday, the markets, of course, closed, and they were closed on the overnight trade, and they will open here just in a few moments at 8:30 Central Time, 9:30 Eastern Time. So let's get analysis on what we could see today for the trade as we visit with Rich Nelson at Allendale Incorporated. Rich, we did have some overnight sales last night.
We certainly did. And as far as the trades focus, maybe not going to get the trades too excited here, but it was good to see 134,000 tons of U.S. corn sold to Mexico overnight, so very good sales there. And in fact, our year-to-date numbers from them are about 1.4% under last year. So actually, for the most part, it's good to see these guys are making some good catch-up sales, and hopefully hope to see a few more of these here.
And we still have a ways to go to be able to meet USDA's projected numbers for this year as far as exports are concerned. But I did see a report out this morning, first thing, that we're still probably the world's majority exporter at this point.
We certainly will be, and I think that shouldn't be violated too much here with this year's discussion with our heavy competition from our South American neighbors. So for the most part, that's exactly right. We're still going to maintain dominance on the world market, but simply not to the extent that we once were at here.
Since this is a kind of an odd week between Christmas and New Year, should we expect much volume this week?
You know, this is normally going to be a quiet week to expect, obviously, with tucked between 2 3-day holidays here. But we can get some exciting stuff. You know, for instance, we might see some movement here based on this cold weather we're talking about right now in the plains and northern Midwest. That might be something to look at here. And second focus might be these new numbers from China, or the overnight import numbers here for the month of November as well.
Rich, last week we saw a lot of pressure on this soybean market. So technically, if we look at the charts for soybeans, are we still technically oversold in this market?
You know, for the most part, people will be saying, as long as we're still in a quote-unquote downtrend for the short-term market, that maybe this is not yet a time to make a whole lot of buys or something like that, make that type of discussion point. But let's be realistic here. We are coming up against some support here on the charts here in just a few cents from now. So we probably will see some support, add a little cushion to this week's what should be a lower volume trade.
You know, corn and wheat have been showing a little bit of sign of strength here over the last week or so, maybe week and a half. And is it traditional that both of those commodities actually see a little bit of a rally going into the new year?
You know, it is often that we see something like that as far as a small little bounce. Seasonally, of course, both these markets are typically are usually by now well off the harvest lows. So, yes, we are typically going to see some strength on a seasonal basis at this time of year. And given this new number as far as the temperatures we're looking at right now for the plains and northern Midwest, I think we probably will see a little support for the feed grains this week.
You mentioned some support over in that wheat market. A lot of folks are going to be watching very, very closely that winter wheat forecast because Tim Ross's weather forecast really showed some very bitterly cold temperatures across the southern part of the winter wheat belt with no precipitation.
Exactly right. Now, as far as statistically, there's actually not a whole lot of correlation between dry winters and yield problems in next spring. Certainly for winter wheat, we got to look at those April rains very, very closely. But in terms of the trade focus, though, this certainly does add a small amount of psychological support for these markets. No doubt that nobody wants to see this type of stuff last year.
That's right. Rich Nelson with Allendale Incorporated here with us, and be sure and stick around with us. When we come back, we'll get to all of the livestock numbers and trade, and we're going to kick the trade off here at 8:30. That comes up next here on the Market Day Report. Rich Nelson with Allendale Incorporated is on the line with us, and it's time to talk about the livestock market. That also will open up here in about 5 to 10 minutes from now at 8:30 Central Time, 9:30 Eastern Time. Rich, we had a lot of numbers hit that market at 11 o'clock right before the close at noon on Friday of last week. Do you think that most of that energy has already been spent in the market, or do you think that there's some residual energy from those numbers that the trade will be focused on today?
I I do think that there will be something to look at as far as maybe a little carryover factor. Certainly on the cattle side, looking at those placement numbers, 114, so 14% higher than last year for the month of November. Obviously, over all the trade estimates here from the private analyst, and certainly indicated that we certainly have some concern about the quality of our pastures out in winter wheat country. So I do think we'll have a little carryover pressure on the cattle side here today.
And what about the hog pressure also, or the hog market anyway? According to some in the trade back on Friday, they said that report was a little bit neutral.
You know, it was, for the most part, not too far over the trade guesses here, 2.4% over last year in terms of the total hog herd, so a little higher than the average trade guess. We'd kind of point to some of the numbers on the extended breeding or farrowing intentions here. These numbers did run about 1% over the trade expectations, 2.8 and 2.3% year-over-year gains for the DSFEB and March-May farrowings. So this later 2018 period, second half of the year, might see a little more hogs here than the trade wanted to see.
One of the things that the trade, though, has been watching are the exports. And exports have been pretty good up to this point for pork over the last 3 months or so.
That's actually a very good discussion point. So a little higher supply, but at the same time, we are seeing actually a bit more export demand, helping to relieve some of the pressure here. Also on the positive side, we still have cheap feed. So these producers are looking at $59 per hundredweight break-evens right now. Clear profits through all of 2018 are certainly lined up here.
Both for the pork and the beef side of things, then one of the things the trade has been kind of watching was the weights, those slaughter weights, watching those pretty closely going into the new year, particularly when it comes to that cold storage report.
And certainly true as far as this end here on that cold storage report. As far as the trade's numbers, well, the hog or the pork numbers found in the end of November numbers, 504 million pounds, certainly much lower than the trade expected, and certainly that was a factor as far as a contributing factor to those numbers there.
Rich, what about the outside markets? What are they traditionally? Do they have much of an influence on the commodities for this week in between Christmas and the New Year?
You know, this week maybe not particularly here, but often as we get past this point, past that January 1st holiday, we do see the trade say, well, the news as far as grain markets does quiet up a little bit. So often grain markets do take some cues from the outside markets in the coming days. As far as this week itself, maybe not too much. I believe we've got a consumer confidence report out this morning, but beyond that, economic report's kind of quiet here.
So quiet all the way across the board here at the open, then, is what you're expecting for all of the commodities?
Certainly should be the case, and maybe on the grain side, a little support. And as far as livestock side, maybe a little pressure on the beef, but certainly on the hogs, maybe a little mixed trade there. Okay,
Rich Nelson here with us with Allendale Incorporated to kick things off here on this Tuesday morning of a brand new week as we wind up 2017. And Christina, well, the markets again will be opening this morning at 8:30 Central Time.
Okay.
So in just a few more moments.
Just a few moments. A lot of people want to know, where's that Dow going to start out today?
Exactly right.
All right, thank you so much, Markets Editor John Jenkinson.